Get attitude means, how can I proactively change the way I think? How can I proactively increase my life? How can I proactively create better relationships and better work situations for me to enjoy it?
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the GAP, the Get Attitude Podcast. The Gap, bridging the gap from who you are to who you want to become and from where you are to where you want to be. My name is Glenn Bill, founder of the University of Attitude, keynote speaker, and author of the book, The ABCs of Attitude. You know, I've helped tens of thousands of people get attitude. Attitude, it's the secret formula to your success in your business and in your life. And this podcast will help you get yours. So let's get some. Hello and welcome again, everybody. We just want to make sure that you please subscribe, that you rate and review. Today we are here with the one and only Gannon Switzer. Gannon is a fantastic person for you to be listening to today with me, and he is going to help you get from where you are to get from where you want to be. Gannon is the president of a pretty large company called KST Security.
Correct.
And Gannon was a Division I track and cross-country runner at Indiana University. He is also a product of Carmel, Indiana. He was a teacher and a coach after he ran all those years of Division I track and cross-country. Worked his way up through school administration, then became a manufacturing sales rep.
Correct.
And got in that whole sales game. And now is the president of, as we've talked about, KST Security. So, Gannon, welcome to the Get Attitude podcast.
Thank you, Glenn. Fantastic to be here.
Wonderful. So, boy, it sounds like you've had quite the ride over the past several years of your life. Talk to us a little bit, if you would, about how this started, where you're from, and maybe your upbringing, and then what it was like to become a Division I athlete, jump into teaching and coaching, jump into administration, and now to where you are. Talk to us a little bit about how you filled that gap.
Sure.
And what that all meant.
Product of Central Indiana, as you mentioned. I grew up here, north side of Indianapolis in Carmel, Indiana. I think like a lot of kids my age, tried their hand at different sports. Too short, too slow, too a lot of things to continue with football and basketball and baseball. Growing up in Indiana, basketball was the sport. My dad was a high school basketball player and had coached. Just really gravitated towards track and cross country. Ran the gym class mile and won for my class. And phys ed teacher said, "You should do cross country." And I said, "What's that?" I was like a sixth grader at the time. And it just grew from there. The camaraderie, the teamwork, and that ended up being, my vehicle. A lot of individual challenge that goes into being a distance runner.
Right.
Fell in love with it. Carmel's program at the time was just reaching a pinnacle in a long tradition of with great coaching. Chuck Keppen that was there, all the years of state championships. So couldn't have had an opportunity to be part of a better program. And through high school, was never really the top runner on our cross country team. Had a lot of success in the 2 mile and track. Felt like that was more my thing, was running the 2 mile, and ended up with an opportunity to go to Indiana University to run.
That's something.
It's and through all of that process, I think a big part was continuing working through setbacks.
Yes.
Through the career. It wasn't an easy path for me, even in beyond running, going to IU, and always being a part of a great team. With great coaching is what kind of carried me through and really inspired me that when I got out of school, I thought that's what I want to do.
Yeah, that's cool.
Is just coach.
Right.
And although I'm in a different role now, that's what you spend a lot of time doing. Yeah. I say coaching people. Sometimes it feels more like counseling people.
Right, or babysitting.
Or babysitting when you're leading an organization. But even through teaching, that's really where I found my passion, is just centered around working with people. And my first coaching position was back in Carmel, to Clay Middle School. Met my now wife, Sherry, of 23 years there. She was a coach as well. She was along to keep the papers and coach, and they said, hey, we need young coaches to fill in empty spots, and sure, I'll do cross country. And So that's led to, on the personal side, exciting things in my life. And just reached a point after teaching for 11 years, coaching high school at Lawrence North, developing that program that my own kids were now getting to the age where they were beginning in sports. And I didn't want to be a coach that missed out on what my own kids did. And that's a tough decision for a lot of coaches, as you well know.
Oh, yeah.
The time in your successful football career and coaching, what that commitment is at any level to really achieve and be a top program. So I decided to go to something that gave me some more flexibility.
Right.
And that ended up being in the manufacturer's rep world for security equipment.
Yes.
Didn't know anything about it, but it was still teaching people,
right,
and coaching people on using a product. And here we are.
Here we are at the Get Attitude podcast.
That's exactly right.
So I can't, and Gappers, I'm so sorry. As you know, we have been featuring the 10 Attitude Boosters, and this week's program, this month's program, is focused around the Love Adversity theme, number 8 booster on your cards, but number 1 in your heart. And so we brought Gannon in because he has a varied background, a very successful athletic background, and a great leadership background corporately. And he has seen adversity, in his life and through his growth. So what we want to do is just backtrack a little bit when we talk about. I don't know that we, high school. I know you said, boy, I wasn't the greatest guy on the block, but share with me when it comes whether high school or being a Division I athlete. What was the lesson in adversity? What's a story that maybe you could give us that our people could listen to and go, yeah, that was me. What was the lesson about adversity you learned being a Division I athlete?
Okay. Well, the biggest is, and it carries over through life, is being a Division I athlete, there's always somebody right behind you to take your spot. As I mentioned, not being the top high school runner, nor was I at IU. I had fortunate enough to be a part of a program that at the time I was there, I think 13 Olympians were training in Bloomington, either as teammates of mine at the time or were former athletes coming in to train under Coach Bell and our staff. So there's always somebody else there. The next freshman class can have 4 guys that were state champions from their respective states or in their events, and they're there to be successful. Mm-hmm. So even in the workspace, I see a lot of that where you're constantly having to improve, sharpen yourself, and really speaking to adversity, that's what life's all about.
Sure.
And your lesson there is that you're not done until someone else tells you, hey, kid, or hey, employee,
right,
there's not a space for you anymore.
Sure.
And even in coaching, I've said with my own kids, those that I coached, you keep going, you keep playing, you keep running until someone says it's time, and then you make a decision on where else you're going to go run and you're going to go play. And if that's what you're passionate about, you just continue to keep doing that. So
when you became well, let's talk about your time. You were a teacher. What did you teach?
I was phys ed and health.
Oh, my God, I wish I had your job.
That
was the best job in the world.
Absolutely. I got paid the same as that English teacher that took stacks of papers home and that math teacher, and I got to throw dodgeballs at kids
teenagers.
That frustrated me.
Yeah, that's the way to deal with adversity.
Exactly.
When you think about your 11 years as a teacher and a coach, talk to me about what triggers your mind of what adversity did you face during that time of your life?
During that time, that's when a change in education was taking place.
Mm-hmm.
For so long, we spent time just teaching to the top kids.
Right.
And if everybody else got it, great. And the time that I was teaching, really that decade, we were going through a couple of different things. Lawrence Township and the school that I was in was changing dramatically from a socioeconomic space.
Mm-hmm.
So those kids that were coming from homes that had a lot of needs and didn't have a support structure there, that was a really fast-growing population for us. Assimilating that with the need to really find those kids that are in the gap, really,
right?
To draw that piece. Those are the ones we needed to move the needle with. They were either going to go down a path of destruction,
right,
and settle into a life where they were going to just take what was given to them, or we were going to try to achieve. And that was tough for a lot of teachers. That was a time when I was really drawn towards administration and leading.
Right.
And funny story there is my wife, who was a couple years into administration, said, "You're coaching 51 weeks out of the year and 2 sports. We hardly see each other. If you become a school principal or administrator, I'll never see you anymore."
Right.
So I started chewing on that a little bit while I was working on my grad work. And let's face it, the business world pays just a little bit better than the education world did at the time.
Sure.
So that was a part of it too.
I think that there is getting back to the socioeconomic changes of education. There are people all over this country who are coming from single parent, no parent families, no income families, no warm meals, no role models, no attitude role models. When you engaged with those kids, what did you find they appreciated the most? What did you find that they needed the most? And when it came to adversity, what message did you feel like really came through to them? And what I'm looking for is, those people, our gappers that are out there listening, they may know somebody like this. Talk to me about, any story, any advice that you think really stuck with the kids that were in the gap that couldn't get out.
Well, I guess one thing that sticks with me as a story is introducing those kids to the greatness that's around you. Regardless of where the students were at the time, there were peers or there were people or there were coaches, there were activities to get them involved in where they would find that greatness. One of the 10 is, having a mentor, right?
Yeah, have a mentor, copy them.
That's right, having a mentor and copy them. And so trying to find that at the time, when you go back to the early 2000s, a little different in that we didn't have the social media way to connect and follow.
Right.
And there's some things about that would be a whole other podcast for you. But what resonated with me is getting them connected in some way to somebody.
That's cool.
It didn't have to be me recruiting them out for cross country, that wasn't going to be the fix for everything.
Right.
But just finding a way to include kids in that space and give them something that they were going to take. Remember the first time we did golf instruction, and I didn't grow up as a kid that played a lot of golf. I don't think I picked up a club till I was out of high school. But just seeing kids that had never swung a golf club, hit a golf ball, to do something that they could go on and carry for the rest of it. They got that in 6th grade health and phys ed. And it's not all of them, obviously, but some make a connection and go, wow, this is really important to me. That's the most important thing. Get introduced to and find and seek out somebody that you connect. Don't just sit there and follow on social media and wish that you could be a part of that. Go out and connect with them.
Yeah, that's cool. And I think, that's good for everybody that's listening, right? No matter what the adversity is in your life, right, you can always grow through it. Right?
And you can find somebody else that's dealing with that.
Sure.
In very real terms.
Yeah.
And it's not on a reality TV show or what got posted on Twitter. There's people right next door in your neighborhood, at the coffee shop or the grocery store right around the corner that are dealing with that.
Right. I think that term, seek and ye will find.
Absolutely.
Right? So, I think that's a great point. When we talk about you had to go out and start this thing called sales, right? Talk to us a little bit about being a guy that's never sold, getting into sales. You were pretty successful as a salesperson, correct?
Yeah, I was.
So
had a really hard time in the economy too. So.
Yeah, it was. So that was adverse, right?
It was.
What did you do to grow through that adversity and this whole new, people, when we talk about filling the gap, they're in between jobs. They may be in between relationships. And they have to start sometime. What was your trick that you said, okay, this is all new? What was your mindset? What were you asking yourself? What were you telling yourself about this whole new thing, totally different from teaching and coaching?
Well, whether I knew it internally or it had been proved out, teaching was something I'd gravitated towards, and finding myself getting to a leadership role in those positions. And I looked at sales as the same way. That transition from, I've got to convince kids that what we're talking about matters, whether it's the circulatory system or how you should be eating or that reproduction, whatever it might be, that this is really important. And this is why you need to engage in it for your personal health. And selling products is the same way. It was never just about pushing a gadget or a widget.
Right.
It was about selling the dealers at the time that this is the equipment you need to have that's best for your customers. We're going to protect life and safety, and I got to sell what I have, and I'm going to make it sound like the greatest thing since sliced bread, and then I got to be there to back it up, for sure. So for me, that was the big connection. I just treated it like I'm teaching. It was just teaching a business owner or a sales rep in an organization that this is what you need to use, and this is what you need to believe in, and this is who you want to buy it from.
That's good. I think your customers probably appreciated that too. And for the salespeople out there, it's, let's not try to become some phony salesman or become your sales manager or your sales trainer. You need to find who you are as a person to be comfortable with that and transfer that to sales. And then obviously you have then gotten, the adversity of sales is one thing, and career switch. Now you're the leader of a pretty big company. And talk to us a little bit about the adversity that comes with leadership.
Sure.
And again, your mindset on how to love adversity. And do you really love adversity? And maybe there's a story in there for us. I don't know.
There might be a story in there. Loving adversity and loving challenge can be the same thing, or they can be different depending on the context.
Sure.
Boy, it's being the leader of an organization, the people element is where the most adversity is. I've always been, although some of my high school athletes might think differently before I became a more mature parent, that I've been more of a pull leader than a push leader.
Right.
I really feel that kids, your employees, they've got to get it. If they don't want it, if they don't desire it, if they're not motivated to do that on their own, you can drive them as hard as you want, but it's not going to be the productive culture that I've looked for. What I thrive on is people excelling and achieving because they really believe in that. So as the adversity in leadership is finding those people that fit well into your organization. And as you build that, which we have done over a decade as our company has grown significantly. We're just under 100 employees, and we've been around $20 million in revenue.
Yeah, that's a good number.
And it's a good number. But as we jump to a larger organization, we're getting ready to merge back in with a parent company, where we started as a small little division. So it's a lot of exciting things going on.
You call them exciting. Other people probably call it a pain in the ass, right?
Yeah, that might be where I would use some colorful language to describe it some days.
Yes.
Stressful. It's just highly adverse because people have questions around what does this mean for me?
Yeah, right? Nobody likes change, right?
People don't like change, and boy, there's so much upside with it. But you've got to know your individual group and the people that you're working with. Just as in coaching, this is the team that I have. How do I get the best out of them?
Right.
If you're a basketball coach, they're not all 7-footers.
Right.
What are you going to do with this mixed group?
What do you think's the best way to love your people through adversity? Whether it's your kids, your employees, your family, how do you coach people through adversity? What are the tricks? What's the 1, 2, 3? What do you tell them about it that gets them through and fills the gap, gets them from I hate adversity and I love adversity? What's your advice to those people?
Simple steps of that for me as a leader, it really centers around consistent message. I think as a parent too, for those parents that are out there thinking about I've got adversity that I'm dealing with in home life or maybe with my children, having consistent messaging. If you're a 2-parent family or even if you're that single parent person, again, finding greatness in that support net around you and having that consistent message that adversity is a part of life.
Right.
It's a fact. It's a part of business too. Business is going to change.
Right. And
in leadership in business specifically, we want to pull together our groups and allow for that conversation that's going to happen. You got to have people to vent to. There's going to be bumps in the road, and your people are going to talk about that. But if your leadership team is consistent in the messaging, is that why we're doing this.
Right.
Is this a good idea? Well, it is, and here's why.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not Gannon's opinion on it.
Sure.
It's the belief in the leadership team, and that we come together. We spend more time as a leadership organization together,
Right.
making sure that our message is consistent, and not because we're scripting it, but because this is what we believe in, and we've come to consensus as a group that how we're going to lead this organization is going to be in a positive manner.
Mm-hmm.
And then that permeates down through the group. And when it's not, it's because we as leaders aren't doing that. If your kids aren't getting it, are you really spending enough time with them?
Right.
You know, is your message consistent, or does it change from day to day with your attitude? When you're in a leadership position as a parent or a business leader, you got to be consistent. There's a lot of days I go home and I've got other words from adversity,
Right?
Because I'm worn out and I'm tired. But man, you got to be on.
When
people depend on you.
When you think of great leaders, who have you studied? Who do you look up to? What have they said to you that stuck with you when it comes to lessons of leadership or lessons of fighting through or loving adversity?
Lessons from leaders. You know, I don't have one go-to, and I think that's because I was fortunate and blessed to have such a great experience with different mentors.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them really tough on me, which by my nature, I thrived with that.
Right.
I didn't mind being hammered by certain coaches. My high school coach was really tough.
Was that Chuck?
That's Chuck Keppen.
Right. Now, Chuck has won 24 state titles. I mean, he's a legend, right?
He is. He is.
So, talk to us about Chuck. And, you know, we call it leadership. I would call it adversarial leadership, right? What was that like? I mean, he was a legend. Still is, obviously. Yeah.
He is. And, very tough because he loved our program. He loved our kids, the team, and as an athlete, so much about the sport like he did his own family. And a lot of cases, tough for coaches where it might have been more important than family on a lot of days.
Sure.
And, man, he just would push so hard that I responded with, well, I'd get pissed.
Right.
I'd be like, I'm going to show you, asshole.
Right.
And this is what I'm going to do. And I ran better the next night, or I ran harder in the next workout. And that didn't fit for everybody.
Yeah, a lot of people would
doesn't.
fold up.
And some did.
Sure.
But what Chuck did also is surround himself with coaches. Because he got a lot of that attention by the nature of who he was and his presence in the state and the region.
Yeah.
But there were other people in that organization, like any good staff, that met the needs of the other athletes. And that carried on. When I went to IU, I had a different kind of coach. Coach Sam Bell was much humbler. That's probably not the right word. They're different personalities, but Coach Bell was really hard in a different way.
Okay.
And another great mentor. And I would say from both of them, I learned a lot of great things to do.
Right.
I also learned some things not to do.
Okay.
That would work for me and my personality.
Yeah.
I remember Coach Bell, first day of Big Tens, we were at Ohio State University, and he didn't make the trip with us because of a heart issue. And day one, we didn't perform very well.
Oh.
And we had both men's and women's teams crammed into one hotel room to hear him on the speakerphone of the hotel,
my gosh.
Right?
Yeah.
And
back when technology was so good, a speakerphone to address your team.
That's right. And we got an ass chewing like I had never had before from anybody. And he dressed down that entire organization of 56 athletes and coaches in the room.
Wow.
And I can tell you it was
with a heart issue.
With a heart issue from his hospital bed. We had a different outcome the next day. I think that was our fourth consecutive Big Ten championship the next day that we turned it around.
Wow.
So, that's what those, I think the mentors, the one message what I took out of that was their passion and heart for what they were doing.
Right.
They completely and wholeheartedly believed in what they were doing and how important it was. And it was reflected in everything they did.
Yeah, and I think you said it. When we talk about loving adversity, right, everybody who is listening to this has adversity in their life. And do you really love it, right? And so I understand when we made the attitude boosters, people are going, love adversity, I don't get it. But you said it. It's like, what happens when something bad happens to you? You better have some heart. You better have some passion. And you better understand why you're doing what you're doing.
Exactly.
And because if you're not experiencing some adversity, you are dying. And those examples of those two coaches, I think, are a great, a metaphor or a great story for those people. It's okay to get pissed off when you're going through adversity. And sometimes what we see around the country is the biggest problem people have is they have no passion, they have no anger, and they're not upset where they are. Yeah. And you can't get from where you are to where you want to go if you're not a little bit pissed off about it or got a chip on your shoulder. Yeah. Talk to me about your definition of adversity. I mean, when you think of how would I define adversity, what comes to your mind?
Things I cannot control.
Oh, that's tough.
It's tough.
You mean you can't control everything?
I can't control everything.
Right.
We just spent some time going through and talking about how we have to adjust within our organization. We spent a lot of time on the things that, man, you cannot get caught up on those things that you can't control. That's tough for me.
Sure.
It is, right? When you're the head coach, it's you're going to do it this way. When you're in your classroom, I control this space.
Right.
But I think one of the things that's really important is not getting adversity is what I can't control. So it's about dealing with it.
Right.
But I find a challenge in that too, because for me, I don't just accept that it's completely out of my control. How can I make it better?
Right.
So what can I do? I can't change this. I'm not the decision maker in this case, but what can I do to make sure that it's going to be the best experience for my people, whoever they are,
right?
The organization, my family. It's something that I really learned, I think, from my dad, who was a high school basketball player, and he coached me when he was young, and he was always in sales. And I said, I'm never going into sales. I'm going to be a teacher and coach for the rest of my life, and that's what I'm going to do. And oddly enough, he's one of the guys that got me into this crazy security industry.
Oh my gosh!
Now as a rep that calls on our organization.
Wow.
Probably wishing we would buy more products that he had, so he wouldn't have to work as hard at 72 years old. But he loves what he's doing, and he always allowed me to find my way.
Yeah,
he
cool.
didn't do for me; he supported with, and I think that's really probably where I learned the more of the pulling.
Right.
It's gosh, you going to go out and run today? My dad wasn't a runner, but it was like, oh, you're running today?
Right.
I don't know. If my coach said you need to run today, oh, I'm going to go run.
Right.
But he would just plant that seed.
So for all of us people that aren't good on number 9, which is eat right and exercise, how in the hell did you cross-country runners, every single day you run, and we're talking 7, 8, 10, 11, 12. So we know you're nuts, or at least you were back then. What's the trick for those people that are going, damn, like my man Jason? Jason, you're always free to come in, just so you know. It's always good to have a producer chime in to these.
I think he just got off the treadmill.
Yeah, he did. Did you
before
just
he
get
came
off the
into
treadmill,
studio?
Jason?
That is a negative.
Do you ever feel like I don't want to run today?
Every day.
Yeah. So for us fat old slobs, or for those who are listening, they go, God, I'd even like to just get out and walk and not run. What mentally do you need to tell yourself to get yourself moving through the adversity of not wanting to exercise? Because I think people associate with pain. What's your take on that when people go, I could never run like you ran? What's your thought, or what is it? How can you do it?
Well, you got to start early, right? I mean, if I was picking up running at this age, there's no way. And I don't run a lot competitively now.
Yeah.
I'd tell you a side story about a study I did of Division I athletes that we continued to go back for a number of years, where they tracked athletes.
Tell us.
Well, in the short story, the vast majority, I was in a 10-year study that was done down in Bloomington by a grad student, that the vast majority of Division I athletes don't carry on post-career.
Sure. I don't.
Part of it, the lack of success.
Right.
How do I have measurable success? I can't compete at that level I did before. I can't run that fast anymore, and therefore I'm embarrassed.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go out and run a 5K because somebody may look down there and go, God, Gannon Switzer, he's 150th. He's 10,050th in the mini marathon. What happened to that guy?
Right.
I don't want to deal with that or answer those questions. And it was always about the achievement. The drive.
Interesting.
The being nuts is because distance
nuts.
running at that. Yeah, I am.
Right.
The distance running part of it was that it becomes addictive.
Right.
You don't miss days because that was your drug, the
Interesting.
exercise.
Yeah.
I went through that in a very short CrossFit career at 46 years old that resulted in
Injury?
an injury that I'm just coming back from. But, I mean, you have to do it with a partner.
Oh, good advice.
The people that continued on, and I've got a lot of friends that are still super active. The multiple injuries that I had from running at that high degree of intensity for as long as I had,
Sure.
just don't allow me to do it anymore. And there's that group, but the people that did it recreationally, a lot of the guys I was in the study with were guys that were never Division I athletes.
Right.
And it wasn't just runners. I mean, I was in there with football guys and swimmers and tennis players and everything. They made it a lifestyle.
Right.
It wasn't about winning and placing and times. It was about enjoying what they were doing. So I think that, man, I want to get out and exercise, but I don't know what to do.
Right.
You know, so I'm going to go run or I'm going to go bike. Pick something that's easy, but do it with somebody.
Yeah, that's
I
cool.
struggle just to go out and walk.
Yeah.
If I can walk the dog, that's fine. But as soon as they do their business,
Yeah.
we're back in. If I'm
You're-
going to go walk for exercise, I want to have somebody there.
Yeah, that's cool.
Or I got to listen to your podcasts.
Right.
To
Well,
get me through an
I'll
hour
be with
walk.
you.
That's right.
Everybody, when you start running and start walking and can make your commitment to exercise, put the Get Attitude podcast on. Don't forget to rate, to subscribe, to share. We want that. Well, I am so happy that you were my partner today on the podcast talking about adversity. I think we got some really good tips on how to love adversity, what the mindset is. We are here with Gannon Switzer, and Gannon is going to give us our Knowledge Through the Decades segment. This segment, Gannon, is not meant to be hard. We can edit your answers and get rid of them if none of them are good. So I don't want to put you on the spot.
Oh, nice.
But what we like to do is get the mindset or mind frame of you from 0 to your ripe young age of 48, I think, right now.
Yeah, thanks for not saying 50 or asking.
Right.
Yeah,
Well,
48,
and you're
that is
not going to
correct.
be able to give us advice from 50. But what we do is we just have a little bit of fun, and I just want you to think about when you're a newborn baby or whoever's a newborn baby, what advice would you have for our gappers as a newborn baby?
Continue to not be afraid of the unknown.
Cool.
Newborn babies, everything's new and exciting, and
Awesome.
you're experiencing it. So continue to experience everything new that you
Yeah.
have an interest in.
Even like eating a candle, right?
That sounds like maybe a personal experience of yours, Glenn.
I got a beautiful grandbaby named Mary, and she actually had a candle. She also had a dog biscuit. She broke it in half. We took it out of her right hand. She went right with her left hand. So,
That's
boy,
right.
that's
My
one of
mother
the
would
best.
tell you, don't jump in a pool as a newborn when she was sitting on the end of a diving board with me, and I decided it doesn't look that far down.
Oh, no.
So-
And you did.
Hey, I'm here.
Did you
So
float,
I made
or
it.
did
I
they
did
grab
not.
you?
I sunk like a rock, which is
Awesome.
why I ended up a runner and not a swimmer.
Yeah, there you go. I love that answer. That's really cool to think of all new experiences like a baby. I don't think they fear anything. That's awesome. Okay, I want you to think about when you were 10 years old. Where'd you go to school? Were you Carmel?
I was, yeah.
Okay.
Grew up there.
So 10 years old, what is the attitude lesson that you would encourage our gappers to embrace as a 10-year-old?
Boy, don't pigeonhole yourself.
Mm.
You got a lot of time to figure out what you want to do. I'm still trying to figure out what I want to do when I grow up.
Right.
And 10 years old, there's a big push right now, I think, for folks to say, man, you got to specialize if you're going to be really good. And I
Right.
got a kid that's a baseball player because he went through other sports and that's what he gravitated to and loved. But don't start that early.
Boy,
don't think you have to.
Yeah, and I mean, it's like these, I come from an athletic background as you do, but or don't let your parents pigeonhole you.
Maybe that's it.
Because
that's right.
it's
Don't let
like,
your
holy
parents-
God, you're playing 160 soccer games as a 10-year-old. That's crazy. So now you're at IU. Things are a little bit more fun. You're 20 years old, running track, got the leather jacket, the gear. Talk to us about the knowledge and the lessons of Gannon from his 20s. What advice could you give our gappers?
You are not invincible. You still need mom and dad.
Cool.
And boy, just hang on a little longer and you'll be 21 and things get easier at that point.
Awesome. So you move on, and now you're 30, you're a teacher, you're getting ready to go into administration, you've experienced some success. If you think about your life as a 30-year-old, what lesson can you share with us, or what attitude lesson can you share with us from being 30?
If you haven't started growing up yet,
right,
you need to.
Yeah, now's the time.
You're not 21 still.
Isn't that the truth?
It is.
And boy, you see people, they're 30, and you go,
man, you still feel it at 30. I still felt 20. I was still running a lot.
Right.
So physically and mentally and maybe socially and economically, you're in a better place.
Yeah.
But you're not 20 anymore.
30's a tricky. That's
it
good.
Is.
That's great advice. Gannon, you're crushing this exercise, my man. And then let's talk about that Gannon that was, 8 years ago. What was life like for you? What was the lessons that you think you can communicate with our people that could help them make a difference?
I noticed a big change at 40.
Mm-hmm.
I think anybody that's in their 40s and 50s will start to say that. Don't think I'll do it someday.
Right.
I plan on living a really long life. I've got good genes, good family history, but something can happen at any time. But don't just think I'll do it someday. When I get more time, I'll do it. When I get more money, I'll do it. Those things that are most important, you need to start them. I tell people when I get to 50, hey, I'm only going to be halfway done.
Right.
But when I hit 40, it's more than likely
that
I was halfway done. And so don't wait. At that point, anything you've been putting off, don't put it off any longer.
Yeah, that's good. Well, Gannon, we appreciate it. I thought that knowledge through the decades was extremely good.
Thank you, Glenn.
I really appreciated your thoughts on adversity, your tips that you gave us on adversity, the ways to look at adversity. If this episode boosted your attitude, we would ask you to please share it with a friend, put it on social media, join the Attitude Movement on Facebook and at the University of Attitude. Gannon Switzer, it was awesome to have you. Much continued success,
Glenn.
And I hope you don't have too much adversity in your life.
Well, you can't get away from it, so meet it head on. And thank you for this opportunity.
Yeah.
I love to be included in the guests. List that you have is much appreciated, and I love your passion that you share for coaching and working with people and attitude, and what you've done in helping our organization.
Sure.
Awesome.
Thanks,
thank
man.
you.
All right, Gannon, be good.
Hey,
Take
thank
care.
you.
Thank you, buddy.